Hey, yeah, Andy, you need to tell Brian about this place, and he needs to get some of his guys that don't know what to do with their money
to
come here and invest in this place, because Steve will tell you about this place.
No, it's off the hook.
It's one of a kind.
We're going to put your website, your real estate website on here, your email and your phone number, and we're going to attach all that, and we're going to tell them you're a real estate agent down there now. You've retired from, the NFL and scouting and all that, and you're going to say that at the end. I'll tell them what you're doing at the beginning, but then we'll remind everybody, hey, if you're looking for a great place, this is it. Because this is kind of a platform for everybody. We just had a guy on that I coached with who has a foundation down in Los Angeles that he just helps feed kids and puts them on little football teams and does all that kind of stuff. So we put his website together and all that for him too, to use this as another platform to sell himself essentially. And that's what we're going to try and do with you.
Well, I ought to be sitting down on a pontoon on the lake then.
Too late. We got you here now.
Can you tell I'm on a golf course?
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks good.
Yeah, you can see the mountains and everything behind you and all that stuff. So, all right. So you ready, Andy? Here we go.
Andy's ready.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in again. This is Coaches for Coaches. I'm Steve. That's Andy over there. And I have my brother, Mike Hagen, on the show today. And it's really fun to have Mike on the show. Thanks for coming out. He coached in the NFL, or actually scouted in the NFL for about 36 years. All right. Doesn't look that old, but that's the truth. And then he also was a general manager up in Toronto, Canadian Football League, the Toronto Argonauts. So we're really looking forward to hearing his story and how he got into it, and then, his travels and all that. And then hopefully answer some questions for you. Right now, he's a realtor down at Lake Oconee, Georgia, which is about an hour and a half east of Atlanta. On your way to Augusta, when you're going to see the Masters, make sure you stop there and check out the lake. It's awesome. And we'll give him an opportunity to share what he's doing, what he's done and what he's doing now. But hey, Mike, thanks for coming on the show. Love to have you on. And why don't you just start? How'd you even get into scouting? How'd that all happen?
How'd I get into scouting? I got into scouting because Tom Landry told me I was too slow to keep on playing football, in his opinion. And I took his word to heart, and we parted ways. And about 2 months later, the Cowboys called and offered me a position in the organization. That first year and a half, I worked in every department for about 3 years. And then Tex Schramm, who was the president back then, called me in and said, you know what? He said, you're going to be a scout. You're going to work in player personnel for us. And I said, that's where you want me. That's where I'm ending up. So that's how it started. From that point on, in about late 1981, I started working for Gil Brandt, who is without question the godfather of scouting, marketing of pro football into the colleges around the country. Was just an amazing guy to work for. He's in the Hall of Fame that most of these people that are listening to this know of. But was just very fortunate and blessed to get tied up with that organization and get a start on my career when I was really young, and had the leadership that I had from, people like Tom Landry and Tex Schramm and Gil Brandt and Dan Reeves and Mike Ditka. And I mean, the list goes on and on. Dick Nolan, Neil Armstrong, you worked for most of those guys too, Steve.
Oh yeah. Phenomenal. Tell us a little bit about Gil Brandt and what made him different than those other GMs at his time, and what was he doing at his time? Because this was like pre-computer stuff, really. I mean, computers were just coming about.
Gil actually was way ahead of the curve. We had back then computers were as big as the building you housed it in.
Yeah.
And the Cowboys were tied into I guess it was an information processing system up in Colorado way back in the early 80s, maybe even before I got there. But they were ahead of the curve in that way. But really what made Gil apart from everybody else is he had a coach and a president and an owner that believed in scouting and believed in the way to build the program was through the college draft. He was an amazing marketing guy. The things that, we would do for coaching staffs all over the country, the budget was unlimited. What we would do for the coaches to gain access, I guess you would say, to information, to film back in those days, to practices, everything we needed to evaluate players. So that we went to a school, people knew that we were associated with the cutting edge group in scouting in the National Football League. And like I said, Mr. Brandt was a great marketing guy. I mean, he would send birthday cards to coaches' kids. And I don't mean just head coaches, anybody's coaches' kids.
Yeah.
He would go to games and he'd make it a point to go visit every coaching staff before Saturday of that game. We did tons of mailings for, little, I guess they call it bling now, but back then, we were sending out $30 polo shirts to guys and pens and give away stuff that we delivered to the secretaries and equipment men and trainers and video guys, and just let them know how much we appreciated their hard work and what it meant to us in evaluating their talent on their program, to bring it to the next level.
Yeah, and that's how you found guys like Dwayne Thomas Hollywood, Henderson, the list goes
on and on. Cliff Harris.
Yeah.
Everson Walls, Pete Gent back in the day, Cornell Green. Those are two guys that played basketball.
Yeah.
Gil would send letters not only to an assistant coach on the football team, but he'd send letters to, and whatever else he may have sent, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Head basketball coaches saying, hey, you got any guys on your squad that aren't NBA material that you think have the toughness maybe that we should be looking at as athletes to change into, a football player, regardless of whether they played high school football or not. When we got Cornell Green, I remember I was just a ball boy for the Cowboys back then, but I can remember Cornell Green didn't even know which way to put his thigh pads in his pants because he'd never put them in.
Yeah.
And back then they were shaped with kind of a point on one end. Well, he had them in backwards. And he went into the training room one day and he told the trainer how bad he was getting beat up. And the trainer said, give me your pants. And he had his damn thigh pads in backwards. And we flipped them over and that rectified the problem.
Yeah. Turned him into an all-pro.
Hey, yeah. Mike, as a scout, what are some of the things that you would look for, not only as a player, but as a person when you were trying to land somebody to bring them to play for the Cowboys?
Well, I think, the thing that was ingrained to me with Coach Landry was character number one in football. He was very, very strict upon.
Say that again. You kind of broke up for me.
Yeah.
Character and football intelligence.
Okay, good. Yeah.
And he schooled us up on, how to talk to coaches and how to recognize things and how to look at film and how to see if a guy, was a smart football player. Yes, everybody was in on the Wonderlic, and we did the Wonderlic way back then. And it was the same 50 questions in 12 minutes that it still is now. The questions are different, but the format's the same. And that's a red flag is what that is. There's plenty guys that I can think of and that Mr. Brandt can think of that go down and some are in the Hall of Fame that, couldn't score well on a written test. There's a lot of people that can't score well on a written test, but were great football players because they had an aptitude for football.
Right.
They were wired for football. And so that was something we had to really hone in on because, Mr. Brandt would have us educate. He would give us tools to educate ourselves with, and there's a learning curve and there's a ceiling. And once you get to a certain point, there's certain things that aren't going to change. And that's hard to get through coaches. I'll be honest with you, from the personnel side, that when you come through and you watch a kid play for 3 or 4 years and he's 22, 21, 22, and he's still making the same bonehead mistakes, and they want to say, I can fix it, we can rep it. I say, Coach, he's repping it, and it's simpler where he is, and it's slower where he is, and they're not as big where he is. It ain't going to change. That's the brain he's got. And you're going to take chances on some guys that are ridiculous college football players because you think you can.
Yeah.
And sometimes it works, but a high percentage of the time it doesn't work.
How about you say that, and it's all true, but also you add money to it. They get these big fat contracts. How does that affect them, you think?
Well, again, I've said this before. So much of our generations, and I've been this a long time and watched kids, and I love it. So many young men are growing up. They're not being raised, okay? And that's just the honest truth.
Yeah.
They're survivors. They know how to get by on their own. They can fool you in a minute. They don't trust a lot of people in many instances. So that's something that you, through the interview process and through just observation, and that's why I think it's so important, if you can be a scout, to be a scout in the same area of the country for extended periods of time, because you get to develop a trust with the coaches at those schools.
Yeah.
And you get to see those players for 3-4 years at a time. Yeah. And watch them grow, watch them develop consistency, kind of chart their whole life story. So I don't know if that's kind of a long-winded answer to your question, Steve, but that's the truth of the matter. And, money does change people.
Oh yeah.
There's no doubt. And,
it can get very noisy in their life the more money they make, because
when I did, more counseling of athletes when I was in the draft and doing those kind of things, one thing I always harped on was keep your circle small with these kids. I said, you wait till you go through a hardship. You go through a hardship, you'll find out how many real friends you are. And then when that hardship's over with, you just keep that many in your circle. Yeah. And you won't even have a handful.
Right.
Those are the people you want in your circle. Not all these buddies and acquaintances and hanger-oners. Those aren't your friends. Those aren't your people you need in your circle.
Yeah, all those takers.
But it's difficult now. It's hard. It's hard on these kids.
Yeah.
Mike, can you talk a little bit about the difference between the pressures of being a scout and providing a team with a certain kind of player and person, and then at the next level as a GM, sort of like the difference in level and how that changed how you thought about players and kids and that?
Well, it's all business decisions. You can't get too emotional. You can't get wrapped up into it emotionally too much. You got to separate the two. And at the bottom line is, are you either good enough or you're not good enough? You've either had enough chances and you shouldn't in your hat, or you haven't, and we're going to keep working with you. So it's just a bottom line. It's a bottom line industry, and the film doesn't lie. And at this level, when you make a decision to move on from somebody, they know it. They pretty much know it. And if they don't, then they're probably not going to understand a lot of things in life.
True. There's a difference, though, between being a scout that brings the player to the table or to the board, if you will, and when you were the GM at the Toronto Argonauts, when you had to make that call and decide on how much we're going to commit to this guy, financially commit to him, contractually commit to him. Talk to us about that a little bit.
That's what I'm saying. That's what it becomes even more of a business decision when you're sitting in that chair. Yeah. Because you're managing money, you're managing the cap, you're imagining every meeting room, every position group room. Yeah. So guys got to fit. But again, it comes down to production more than anything else.
And
because
you're putting the chemistry of a team together, a whole team. Like when you're a scout, you're talking about maybe your guys from your area or something. When you're
right.
a GM, you're talking about a team that we're trying to put the chemistry of a team together.
Right. And that depends on what level of scout you are. You know, I started out as an area scout, obviously, and as a regional scout, and then I was national scout for many, many years. And then it also depends on the structure of the team you're working with and how much input you're going to have, whether it be an area guy, a regional guy, or the national guy. You know, I think it's gotten more and more away from the scouts having a real big influence. I think more and more they're gathering and they're evaluating and turning it all over. They're having their say. And at the end of the day, the coaches and the GM are making that call. You know, back when I first started, coaches were hardly involved in the draft. And, you know, Coach Reeves, for example, he didn't go to the combine, you know, because we don't play games in underwear.
Right.
You know, you guys go get all that data you need. And he trusted us emphatically. Yeah. I mean, Mike Vick, when we took Mike Vick, I was the scouting supervisor at the Falcons at that time. I spent a lot of time in Blacksburg hanging out before I even met Mike Vick. But the bottom line is, at the end of the day, when Mike was having his pro day and I was going back up for the pro day, and I said, Coach, you want to go with me? And he said, no, I don't need to go with you. You know what I want. Just go up there and see how he does.
Yeah.
You know, and so I don't know how much that happens anymore unless you're the GM's number one guy or something like that. I don't get a feeling that happens a whole lot more. Yeah. You know, where that guy sitting at the front of the room looks at you and goes, yes or no. We taking this guy? It's on you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much of that goes on anymore. GM to scout, head coach to scout. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Is that why coaches are now like held more responsible for that? Like when a guy does something bad because he wasn't involved in because the scouts aren't given the same kind of trust?
Well, at the end of the day, it's the personnel department's decision for bringing those coaches that information, basically, that he made his decision on, other than, you know, the scouting combine interviews that the kids are well prepared for. And then the coach's own vision of what he sees on tape, you know. And there's good evaluators, there's not so good evaluators in scouting world, and there's really good coaches that are really good evaluators and know exactly what they want and can show it to you and tell it to you in 30 seconds, but they're not good tape watchers or evaluators off film, and they don't really want to do it. They want you to bring them to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Were you more position specific, or did you kind of scout everybody?
No, you'd scout everybody. And when I was the scouting director, or when I was the national scout, then I would focus on, you know, about the top 150 guys, because that's, at the end of the day, that's who you're pulling from. You know, so I would have to make sure I saw every one of those guys and spend time with each and every one of those guys.
Yeah. Well, now you're retired from football, and I guess you never really totally retire from football.
No, I worked a kid out before the draft. He signed with the Seahawks as a free agent.
There you go.
That was kind of fun. I'm consulting on a lawsuit for representing the doctor in a hospital that's getting sued by an ex-player that said he wasn't diagnosed correctly and lost his career. So I'm doing consulting in different ways of football, and you know, that keeps my blood running hot for the sport, which will always be. But I'm selling real estate in Lake Oconee, Georgia, Greensboro area. It's 85 miles from downtown Atlanta, 70 miles from Augusta. It's a resort homes, second homes. A lot of people work from their homes here.
I know you sell a lot of homes to, or you'd like to, but I know you have in the past, to a lot of coaches and a lot of NFL players and stuff. A lot of them go down there because it's such a nice place. It's really warm.
Well, it's a different.
What's the big hotel there on the lake that's just
it's a Ritz-Carlton at Lake Oconee.
Yeah, that's just a fantastic place.
It's a great place. It's a great place to come because, we got, I think, 7 golf courses. You got a lake that's, huge. It's 5-star amenities and 2-star traffic.
Yeah.
There's no big industry out here, yet you're close enough. We're only 45 minutes to Athens, where UGA is, which is a great college town. And so we have everything we need. We just don't have the abundance of traffic and people. Weather's great.
You don't need that either, so that's good.
Play golf or fish, world-class fishing, world-class golf, about 300 days a year. So I love it.
Well,
here.
I've been down there to visit you. I know that. I've been down to visit you, and it's a diamond. I don't even want to say it's a diamond in the rough. It is just a diamond. There's, like you said, there's 7 golf courses, a big, beautiful lake, couple lakes. If you miss football, you can almost have a football clinic down there with all the coaches that live down there and scouts and former NFL and SEC coaches. So that's kind of fun in the summer, because if you go drink a beer over at the local restaurant, you might run into 3 of them and just say, hey,
you might, but the lake and the golf and there's not a ton of places to go hang out, right? Everybody hangs out at their own place in the lake or the golf course, and so it's almost like guys can come down here. Dan Mullen's down here a lot. Kirby Smart's down here a lot. Rich Rodriguez is here a lot. Bruce Arians is here a lot. Ben Roethlisberger comes down. I mean, but these guys can come down here, and it's almost like they're in a witness protection program. Yeah. Nobody cares. Even if they do see them out, they let them roll. And that's what makes it appealing to these guys, because they know they can come down here and be a normal Joe and just hang out. Yeah.
No question. It's a great place. Well, hey, we love having you on, and we'll get you on later on as the college football season starts up. Hopefully that starts up this year.
Yeah, hopefully.
And, we'll get your input on some of those players that are playing games, and we just love having you on and giving us your insight into the scouting and the recruiting and all that kind of business. So a lot of guys can glean some information from this type of interview.
Really appreciate your time, Mike.
Yeah. No worries. Andrew, nice meeting you again. Steve, I'll see you next time I see you.